We invite you to please stand for the prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Our Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in this council chambers for the betterment of our fellow citizens. Lead us that we may do all things well. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Present.
Mr. Rickway?
Here.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Here.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Here.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Here.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Here.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Present.
Let the record show that all 7 members are present, no members absent. Members of council, what is your pleasure on the reading of the last minutes?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse.
I make a motion to dispense with the reading of the last written minutes.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, second by Ms. Hausfeld to dispense with the reading of the last minutes. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Members of council, are there any errors or corrections to the minutes as submitted? If not, the minutes will stand as submitted. Move to reports of city officials. Mayor, Mr. Stuchel.
So this evening, I'm very fortunate to be able to present certificates to the participants in our local Taekwondo program. Their instructor, Don Bendorf, has been an incredible mentor to these students, and I could not ask for a more dedicated individual who constantly goes above and beyond to set an example for our young residents. Thank you again, Don, for this opportunity. This evening, we're presenting promotional certificates for their belts or GUP level that they have earned. This evening, we'll start with Journey Robinson, who is at 8th level. Next, we have Julian Morris, who is also at the 8th level. Okay. Anna Sheets, who is also at the 8th level. And we also have James Bird, who is at the 9th level. So again, if we could just give a big round of applause for these dedicated students of our community's Taekwondo program. Thank you again for your dedication, and you're welcome to stay if you wish, but without... Okay, thank you. On Saturday, April 23rd, it was a big day in the village as we hosted Clean Up St. Bernard Day. Councilman Taberky and I hosted that, and we had our very first work day in the new community garden. The Women's Club had their annual auction and sale, and there was a 200-person cycling club that hosted a ride that began and ended in our village. And we also hosted numerous baseball games at Frank Robinson Field, so there was a lot of activity. The police even made a comment to say, did you have to organize that all in one day? So again, this last Saturday, Councilman Taberky and I hosted the Clean Up St. Bernard Day in the village, and I'd like to thank all the volunteers who showed up to assist. I'd also like to acknowledge Bill Helton from the service department, who donated his time to bring a packer out to pick up all of the litter and trash that was collected. I'd also like to thank all of the dedicated individuals that turned out for the 2 work days this past weekend at the new community garden. There was some serious work that went on, and there's more to accomplish, but it could not have been done without the amazing volunteers, donors, and of course our awesome service department who assisted the group with moving heavy materials up to the site. This is an exciting project, and I can't wait to see it completed as our dedicated group of citizens asked. Lastly, I'd like to bring up a topic that I brought up at the last COW meeting regarding difficulty that we're having in attracting and retaining seasonal help at the service department due to the low level of compensation. I'd like to entertain this again, and I'd like to be able to add approximately $2.50 per hour to each step for the seasonal laborers. So whether or not you want to entertain this conversation at all, or during this time of report, or up under new or old business, however you wish to handle it, but I would like to actually discuss this because we are having some definite difficulties, and it will be showing more so in the community if we cannot at least attract some new folks to fill those positions.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
since there has to be an ordinance, I suggest we put a committee of the whole meeting for 2 weeks from now.
I will put it on the agenda. And-
Mr. President,
Ms. Mayor.
I'd actually, if possible, prefer to not actually wait 2 weeks to put it on the agenda so that then we can wait another 2 weeks. We actually need to move on this. I did bring it up before, 2 weeks ago, and didn't hear a word, even though we had an individual from the service department that went to the individual council members about this. So I do think that now that the point we're actually at, we have limited time and the grass isn't stopping, growing. We still have continued weeds growing. So I would like to look at a way to open this discussion or figure out a way that we can find to expedite this opportunity so that we can at least advertise this a little more at a different rate of compensation to hopefully attract some other individuals that we don't have.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettingham.
what would be the starting salary for those?
Currently, just first step is $10.41. I'm giving you the old.
Yeah.
Current is $10.41. Second is $11.47, and the third is $12.54 an hour.
Mr. President,
Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Jonathan, I know you said for the service, but what about the pool and the other part-time hourly seasonal help? Are we going to have this issue across the board? And do we need to visit all of them instead of just looking just strictly at service?
Mr. President,
Mayor.
I don't feel that this is a short-sighted decision to look at this exclusively at this point. As of right now, we do not have a shortage of individuals to fill those other positions. Doesn't mean that we can't look at the others later. I just don't feel that it's emergency nature to address all of the part-time positions within the village. I mean, I don't think that we need to increase the rate of compensation for pool attendants or things like that. And I'm not trying to actually exactly earmark this to say as essential employees. The rate of compensation for the part-time seasonal workers mirrors that of the lifeguards. As of right now, we have not had a shortage in the lifeguard category. Doesn't mean it couldn't be considered, but right now, we only have, well, there's 3 part-time employees. One can't start for a month. The other is, one of them, there's a chance, could move up to full-time immediately. And then there's another that starts Monday. But it's still, it's an issue right now, currently still keeping up. And then you still have to also work to schedule in all of the vacations that will be happening, for the full-time staff. So I am concerned. But however council wants to handle it, but I would like to find a way, if possible, to expedite this so that we can at least try to, have a couple, productive months.
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
I don't know if this is a question for Peggy or Jonathan or who. What is the mechanism for doing this outside of the normal ordinance pattern?
Mr. President,
Ms. Brickway.
what I suggest is you'll have to amend ordinance number 9, 2022. If you agree to it, I would suggest a special meeting or at least a special meeting before the committee of the whole. So yes, they can't hire anybody and they cannot start working at the rate of pay until you do that. To add to that, it was budgeted $65,000 in that line item. So I think even with these raises, I think it's still doable because we're already, going into May, the rate we're going here. It might need some additional funding, but I would not worry about that at this point because the problem we had last year and the year before that was kids are leaving to go to school, and we've only been spending like 35,000 out of that line item. Jonathan wanted to get more this year because the parks looked so bad last year, but we can't even find the kids. So I don't think there's a worry about that, but you do need to amend the part-time pay ordinance.
And the way to do that is to have a special meeting, basically.
Yes.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse.
how many people are we looking at? I mean, just how many seasonal part-time do we usually have? That's,
We are budgeted for 6.
okay.
What is council's pleasure on doing this at the a special meeting before committee of the whole then? Is
Mr.
that-
President,
Ms. Housel?
because it was just brought up that they would want to discuss it at the committee whole, can we do a special meeting after committee of the whole? I'm just curious.
Mr. President, you just
Ms. Brickman.
discussed it.
Okay.
I mean, unless you guys want it, but what I was gonna say, you can even discuss it tonight in more detail if you want. Just suspend with the regular order of the meeting, and then you can open up this discussion, but you're kind of already discussing it anyway.
Okay.
Once again, is council in favor of placing, I forget what ordinance you said?
We'll be amending ordinance number 9.
Council okay with doing that special meeting before the next committee of the whole, or just looking for some direction here?
President,
Mr. Taberky?
make a motion to have a special meeting for the next council committee of the whole for ordinance number 9, to amend ordinance number 9.
Second that.
A motion by Mr. Taberky, second by Mr. Ray Culbertson to have a special council meeting before the at 7 PM before the May 12th committee of the whole to amend ordinance number 9, 2020.
Two.
What'd you s- two?
9/2022.
Two. Okay. Are there any remarks? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we will have a special council meeting on Thursday, May 12th at 7 PM to discuss ordinance or to amend ordinance number 9, 2022. Anything else, Mayor?
So this evening, we have one more student in our local Taekwondo program that we'd like to honor for achieving his 8th level GUP. We have Mr. Julian Morris. Thank you again for coming. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Auditor, Ms. Brickwick?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Auditor's Office has prepared ordinance 13/2022 for tonight's meeting. This is an additional appropriation of $200,000 into tax refunds, General Fund 2E-3. Secondly, there's been some questions regarding the community garden and how the expenses are being paid. What was decided with the community garden was we've been receiving some revenue from it. People are making donations, so I'm putting that in miscellaneous revenue. Therefore, since this doesn't seem like it's gonna be a regular thing, I'm using miscellaneous expenses as we have the expenses coming out. So, it just was the easiest way to do it without creating a bunch of new line items that might not ever be used again. So, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Director of Law, Ms. Van Valkenburg.
Thank you. Okay, you have before you tonight for I believe the third reading is ordinance number 12, 2022, which is an ordinance imposing a moratorium of 2 years on the accepting and processing of applications and the issuing of any permits allowing retail dispensaries, cultivators, or processors of medical marijuana within the village limits. I would urge it it be adopted. As we discussed at the in depth at the most recent committee of the whole meeting, it's a moratorium. It's not a ban. It's a moratorium which can be lifted before the end of that period. But I do think we need to look at the zoning issues that we discussed at length. So I would urge its adoption. There was also discussion at the committee of the whole. Chief Simos appeared, and Mr. Paul also addressed the issue of possible amendments to the C9 trust. I did meet with some of the trustees last week and again this week, and we've been collecting documents. I think I finally have all the documents I need to look at. I got the last one today. So I don't have anything to present for you tonight to look at, but I will have something for you to look at the Committee of the Whole, because I do think we need to amend both the C9 Trust document and also the VIVA plan document. And then I would also ask that we go into executive session at the end of the meeting to discuss ongoing litigation. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerg.
make a motion to go in executive session in the meeting for pending litigation.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. DeBerke, second by Ms. Bettinghouse to go into executive session for pending litigation at the end of this meeting. Are there any remarks? Clerk, will you call the roll on the motion, please?
Mr. Taberkey,
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig,
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld,
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson,
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse,
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson,
Aye.
and Mr. Schildmeyer.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Council will go into executive session to discuss pending litigation at the end of this meeting. Anything else, Ms. Van? Nope, good.
No, thank
All
you.
right. Treasurer, Mr. Unger.
No report this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you. Safety and Service Director, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to repeat this reminder to you, this time of year, yard waste must be canned or bagged. It is against the village's ordinance to sweep yard waste into the street and leave it. If you see someone, report it. Our sewer systems are for storm water, not debris. Can or bag them if you must get rid of it. This year again, our very own Roger Bacon High School will be performing the 2022 Go Local Cleanup Day for our village. This project consists of the students helping the village with various tasks as weeding, mulching, and general litter pickup where necessary throughout the village. That'll be Tuesday, May 17th. It's a big help. Go Spartans. To my community, this time of year, again, we start planting our seeds. Of course, we have prepped our ground for the acceptance of the seeds. Now the care begins. Some of us have experience, others are just starting to pay attention. Experiencing new growth or change can be exciting. However, it can also be disappointing. Too much or too little fertilizer can be troublesome. Moderation can be very helpful. If you become overcaring and controlling, you will overshadow the true potential of your garden. Always leave room for growth. Live in peace. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Tax Commissioner / Administrator, Ms. Elms.
Thank you, Mr. President. The March 2022 tax report for collections for March were $1,758,612. Tax refunds for March were $11,559. Delinquent tax collected with capital recovery was $2,781. Delinquent tax collected with the Ohio Attorney General's office was $56,469. March 2022 is up 48.11% from March of 2021. Tax paid through the e-file portal to date was $8,058.75. That concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll move to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. Taberkey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Along with Jonathan talking about the cleanup day, just thank Donnie Middendorf. He was down there also doing a paint collection for Matthew 25 Ministries. Concludes my report.
Thank you. Safety, Mr. Brickwig.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to report that the fire department has the new fire pickup truck is in, and it's been striped. The old pickup truck was given to the service department last Monday. Also, the block watch will be meeting at the safety center 6:30 p.m. on May 19th. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Service, Ms. Hausfeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight I have the Service Department report for March 2022. There were 35 trucks placed at residence, 28 dumpsters placed at residence, 132 special pickups at residence, 195.4 tons of garbage taken to the landfill. As far as the recycling goes, there's 36.05 tons of recycling material, 45 pounds of scrap metal aluminum, 19 pounds of brass, 4 pounds of copper, and 6,220 pounds of scrap metal. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Public Improvements, Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The CIC met this past Tuesday. Some of the items that we talked about was the empty lots on Tower. Those are going to be listed on Zillow. So if anybody is interested, look out there for information. You can submit your request for proposals to the CIC for those properties. We also had a speaker talk about the community garden, which the CIC voted to donate $2,000 in support of the community garden. So I would highly recommend any resident in the village to contribute to something good and positive in the community. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Laws, contracts, and claims, Ms. Bettinghouse.
Thank you, Mr. President. As Chair of the Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee, I highly recommend the passage of ordinance number 12, 2022. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Marketing, Mr. Ray Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. I would like to start out by congratulating Thaxton McMullen. Thaxton is a St. Bernard resident and a St. Bernard Stingray who attends St. Xavier High School. Thaxton won a Division I state swimming championship in the 500 freestyle. He also won the 200 individual medley and the 50 butterfly at the ICRC championships in Florida. Again, congratulations to Thaxton. The deadline for T-ball signups is next Friday, May 6th. This is for kids ages 3 to 6, and the cost is $20. Please sign up at City Hall. And finally, the next meeting for the German Luau Committee is on Tuesday, May 3rd at 6 p.m. in the Centennial Hall. They are always looking for fresh faces and new ideas, so please stop down. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Business and Industry, Mr. Schultmeyer.
Thanks, Mr. President. I wanted to remind everybody again that Matthew 25 Ministries, with cooperation of St. Clement, is going to be collecting donations for the humanitarian crisis going on in Ukraine, starting Monday, May 22nd, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and then again from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., they'll be collecting donations. That will go on Monday through Friday, May 6th. Then on Saturday, May 7th, and Sunday, May 8th, they'll collect donations from noon to 6 p.m. solid. What they are looking for, you can have, the products they're looking for are any personal care products, soap, toothpaste, toothbrushes, those kind of things, paper products, toilet paper, paper towels, any first aid items, new and gently used clothing, any linens, baby and infant supplies, and any new stuffed toys. In addition, you can make monetary donations if you choose to by going to the Matthew 25 Ministries website. That concludes my report.
Thank you. This time we'll move to ordinances. Clerk, could you please give the third reading of ordinance number 12, 2022?
Ordinance number 12, 2022, an ordinance imposing a moratorium of 2 years on the accepting and processing of applications and the issuing of any permits allowing retail dispensaries, cultivators, or processors of medical marijuana within the village of St. Bernard, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the third reading of ordinance number 12, 2022. What is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 12, 2022.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld, to adopt ordinance number 12, 2022. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberkey?
No.
Mr. Rickweg?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
No.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schultmeyer.
Aye.
5 ayes, 2 nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 12, 2022 is adopted as read. Clerk, could you please give the first reading of ordinance number 13, 2022?
Ordinance number 13, 2022, authorizing and directing the auditor to provide additional appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 13, 2022. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 13, 2022.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend the second and third reading of ordinance number 13, 2022. Are there any remarks? Not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 13? Not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Taberkey?
Aye.
Mr. Rickweg?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schultmeyer.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 13, 2022.
I'll
motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld, to adopt ordinance number 13, 2022. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Tabergi?
Aye.
Mr. Brickway?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 13, 2022 is adopted as read. Does anyone on council have anything under old business?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberki?
Chris, on your Matthew 25 Ministries, during the week, there's only certain hours they're open, correct? I couldn't hear if you said the hours they were open during the
Yeah,
week.
thanks, Donnie. I'll read them again. Monday through Friday, this Monday, May 2nd through Friday, May 6th, they're going to be collecting 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and then again, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then on Saturday and Sunday, they're collecting from noon to 6 o'clock.
Thank you. And then Valley on the C9. I talked to Dave. He seemed like there's a bunch of changes he wants to make. Can you get them to us with approximate cost and stuff?
I'll ask him to look into that, yes.
Okay. And then Tommy, on the Roger Bacon students, are they going to be concentrating on the safety center? That looked pretty bad most of the year last year. A lot of weeds and overgrown stuff.
Yeah, we won't have as many students, but I'm gonna ask them to go to the safety center, then also around Ross Park to help with the mulching around the walking track.
Anyone else under old business? If not, does anyone in council have anything under new business? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council this evening? If not, council will go into executive session, but let me remind everybody, we will have a special council meeting on Thursday, May 12th at 7 p.m. to amend ordinance number 9, 2022, followed by the committee of the whole. This time, council will go into executive session to discuss pending litigation, and we will return. Back in session. We met in executive session to discuss pending litigation. This time I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
A motion by Mr. Ray Culbertson, second by Mr. Bob Culbertson to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.